Welcome, everyone. This is Virginia Parsons, your Hangout mentor and the host of the Inspirational Businesswoman Show. And I'm thrilled to have you here today with what I feel is a very special guest, Lisa Engles. She's going to talk about some things on a much deeper level, in my opinion, questions that need to be asked, ideas that need to be explored, all about connecting in the digital world and doing this in a collective level. So I'm very excited to have her with us today. Before we get started, I just want to share with you that today's show is sponsored by hangout-marketing.com, where you can receive a free Hangout marketing assessment that's going to measure your skill set and your knowledge base and how to use Hangouts on air to brand, grow, and market your business. So all you have to do to take advantage of that is to text the word success, SUCCESS, to 307-269-2040. That assessment will only take you a couple minutes, and you might even qualify for a free strategy session with me where we'll discuss all the different ways that you can use Hangout marketing to brand, grow, and market your own business. So take advantage of that, won't you? Now, I want to thank you all for being here because I know your time is valuable, and it's my intention to bring you really valuable content, a goldmine of entrepreneurial tips, strategies, and advice to help you grow your business from inspirational businesswomen in the know. And today's inspirational businesswoman is none other than Lisa Engles. Now, Lisa is the consultant and a mentor. She's also an evolutionary entrepreneur, and I'm going to let her explain to you just what that means. She is the founder of Interstate Coaching, where she mentors people who are ready to wake up and change the world. And she believes that humanity is collectively experiencing an awakening, but is struggling with how to navigate the turmoil of this fragmented world. Now, Lisa hosts 2 Hangout on Air shows, Hangouts with Visionary Leaders and The Power of Practice. And she has truly mastered the art of creating deep and authentic connections with her audience and is an expert in harnessing digital potential in service of human and social potential. I think this is exciting stuff, and I can't wait for Lisa to share it with us right here on the show. So come on and say hi to our audience, Lisa. How you doing?
Hey, Virginia. It's great to be here today. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, you are so welcome. You know, there's so much that we have that we can talk about. I'm going to start with, first of all, how we met each other, and a little bit about this technology that has me so excited, as you know, on how to really pick this technology up and use it for the highest good. And, you know, we were talking about the need for people to connect, and yet we're in a digital world where it seems like, in so many ways, people are missing out on the connections that they can make. So I wanted to bring something up and just have you comment a little bit, and we're going to start the discussion right there, and that is with this idea that, so I get my Hangout toolbox back up here, here we go. We're in a digital world right now. We're not back in 1993, are we? And they're suggesting here, no Wi-Fi, call your mom, talk to each other. What do you think about this, Lisa?
Yeah, well, I think it's true, like you said. We're in a world, as you said in your introduction there, of where we need more connection, despite the fact that we are ultra connected, supposedly through social media and phone and all these things. But in my opinion, it's not the technology that's causing the lack of connection. It's how we're using the technology, and I think that's where you and I have this, something in common, where we love Hangouts. Like, it's a piece of technology. It's digital potential, and when we say the word potential, we mean that there's a potential within it for us. It's not it's not going to do it for us. It's us and how we use it that creates the potential there, right? So I agree with you. It's like, okay, it's great to connect in that little piece. I don't want to go back to 1993. I'm not vilifying the technology that's out there, but the way we're using the technology, maybe that could be a little change a little bit.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to add that Lisa and I basically met each other when we really started to learn intently how to use Hangout technology. We were both in the same Hangout Marketing Challenge about a year and a half ago, and that's when we began to embrace the power of this technology and began to see the potential for it. And for me, it became just the opposite of not connecting, became a very powerful connection tool. Now, I have to say that before Hangouts on Air became available, I was already using the technology to connect with my mom, literally. And I know people who are using, Macs and iPads, FaceTime was the same thing. Suddenly my mom, who was in her 90s, was able to talk to her family because she couldn't travel anymore, but she was able to talk to her family across this country. 3,000 miles away, she could suddenly see them. So the beauty of bringing the visual and the audio into connecting to me is what makes this so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the same exact experience. My grandmother, who's now 97, and my daughter, who's 12, it's like, we can't go, she's too old to get on the plane and see us, and, we're busy. So it's great to have my daughter and myself be able to connect with my grandmother, who's 97, who can't travel, and we were using FaceTime because we have Mac,
Right.
Hangouts, but the version of the audio video thing, Skype, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why, this sort of stimulated the conversation with Lisa and myself and the need to connect in the digital age. Because we've got the other side of the coin, don't we, Lisa? Uh, my kids have told me from time to time, don't call me, or if you leave a message on the phone, I probably won't bother to respond because I never listen to voicemail. If you really want to reach me, you need to text me. So, okay, texting I get, it's quick, it's efficient. Yes, you can make sure that you're communicating. I love it because I'd rather do that than have no phone call. But on the other hand, the problem with text for me is now we are losing that sense of connectedness. And I also had experiences with texting where it's misconstrued because you
Yeah.
you don't get the intonation in someone's voice. You do not get the visual cues that you get from looking at someone and seeing what they're saying. So I do think there is a problem with connection there. What do you think about that?
I think there's always a problem with writing, whether it was in letters in the 1700s or the 1900s. I think that writing always provides a barrier to connection because it is something that's interpreted. Look at the Bible. It's been interpreted many, many, many different ways. And who knows what was really being said. I mean, that's whole different discussion, but I absolutely agree. I've experienced it myself in email communications or text communications. You're like, wait a minute, what were you really saying there? I'm like, what's my story about what you're really saying? It just doesn't happen when you have the audio and the video and you're live and you're able to see expressions and you're able to ask in that moment, wait a minute, what did you mean by that? So it's a whole different thing, even different from just audio, right? A lot of times nowadays we have the webinars that are happening and the teleseminars where you don't see the person, you just hear the person, but you lose the whole aspect of the visual cues that you get from someone in their facial expressions or their hand gestures and connecting with a person based on the nuances of just their energetic signature and who they are.
Absolutely. And that's why we felt that this was an important conversation worth having. And for all of you that are with us live, thank you for being here. And for those of you who are going to be joining in and watching later, we love that you're able to come whenever the time works for you. And I'd love it if you would just add in the comment section where you're hanging out from. And you know, part of my passion with this show is to provide a real collaborative of bringing our sister and brother entrepreneurs together, so that we get to know each other, so that we can start to support one another in our own businesses. And you know, the connections that come from that can be very powerful. I've already, over the last 6 months I've been doing this show, had a number of people connect with each other and support one another in their projects who would never have known each other had it not been for this incredible medium, Hangouts on Air. So please, in the comment section, where you're hanging out from, I'd love to see that. And also a little bit about what your passion is, what you're doing in the world, what you're aspiring to bring to the world. And let's make this truly a collaborative effort. Now, Lisa, I'd like to have everyone know a little bit about your background, because not everyone knows of you through Google, although I think that's where a lot of people have connected with you, is on the Google platform. It's certainly something that's become my favorite platform to hang out in. But prior to Google, tell us a little bit about yourself and the evolution of your own business, and now where you choose to take it from this point. So a little backwards and a little to the future.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for asking the question. And my own journey in my career has been in evolution, like you're saying, but at the core of it, I've always been passionate about potential, about reaching our highest potential. And when I was young and in my 20s and in school and college, I was studying exercise physiology and kinesiology. I was a competitive runner and triathlete, and I was pretty much, you could say, obsessed with physical potential and how to reach your physical potential, which is why I got my degree in exercise physiology and kinesiology. I just wanted to know everything about the body and how to make it faster, stronger, more fit, and more healthy. And so that led to me into the beginning of my career as a coach, a running and triathlon coach, and a personal trainer. So coaching people on a physical level and helping them reach their highest physical potential. It didn't take long for that to shift into human potential. I got very, very interested in the human potential movement and personal development, and already having a background and knowing how important the mental aspect was with reaching your physical potential. I guess I just sort of naturally went into studying that and getting my life coach certification, and went back to school for many other things that I don't need to go into right now. But that shifted my work from physical potential into human potential, and as a coach and mentor. And then that gradually over time evolved in my own waking up process to, okay, well, the human potential or physical potential is great, human potential is great, but I think, now what I'm really passionate about is social and planetary potential. Like, how can I be in service to the awakening of human and social and planetary potential? So that's been the evolution of my work, I guess, as an entrepreneur, as a coach and a mentor and a consultant.
Well, I love it. And what you're really saying is that we're continually evolving, that, nothing is stagnant, and that as long as you're open to what the possibilities are, which is a lot of what potential is, and you first, are embodying it and understanding the potential for the body to reach its own peak potential, then moving it into the coaching realm. And now I love the whole concept of moving it into awakening the social potential in a way that is collective. I think it would be really helpful to explain what you mean by awakening to your collective potential, collective human potential.
Yeah, well, awakening to our collective human potential, awakening is really a process. I like to say that waking up isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process for those people who think, oh, I've done, a course, or I spent a year doing a course in personal development. It's like, okay, great, that was a period, but it's an ongoing thing. So waking up is about you and us, each individual doing their work, their inner work, their personal development work, to really understand who they really are. What is your unique self-expression in the world, and how do you harness that to be in service? So that's the waking up. But along with waking up, we have to grow up. Growing up means that we have to take responsibility for the shit that we've put onto other people or haven't taken responsibility for. So when you talk about waking up, you also have to talk about growing up, because they happen together. You can't wake up and not grow up. They just sort of happen hand in hand. And then the last piece of that is to show up, because if you're going to wake up, if you're waking up and growing up, then you have to show up every day to do your work. You're showing up. Otherwise, nothing really happens. The show up piece is about being in action. And I'm not going to take credit for the wake up, grow up, show up. That is actually something that comes from the integral world, and Ken Wilber and Mark Goffney talk about it. So I want to give credit where credit is due for that little piece that I just talked about there.
Well, but that is part of the collectiveness too. I mean, when someone does create a concept, a way of clarifying expression, and then you take it and use it as a tool and a means of connecting and a means of communicating, that is part of the collective, isn't it? So yes, giving credit where credit is due, but also moving it forward, getting it out there in a bigger way. And that is also part of showing up, isn't it, Lisa? Is showing up in a bigger way than you may have thought you were able to, or you should. What are some of the underlying issues that prevent people that you're working with from waking up, showing up in a bigger way?
I think that what keeps people from the waking up piece is actually what I call the signs and symptoms of waking up get misconstrued as, or misperceived, because for me, waking up is a perception thing. It's about shifting our perceptions, being able to have a multi-dimensional perspective instead of just looking at a situation, circumstance or event from one perspective, or just one or two perspectives, which is what most people do. Being able to have a very multiple perspective practice, right? Yeah. So what ends up happening, what I've recognized, is there is a collective experience happening right now. There is an awakening happening, but the signs and symptoms of awakening often feel like the opposite of awakening, because maybe in our minds we might think, oh, awakening, it's this glorious thing where I have this beautiful aura and glow and everything is going perfectly for me. That's not what happens. An awakening is usually catalyzed by a sense of disharmony, dis-ease, dissatisfaction, feeling lost, feeling total clarity, and then feeling lost, and then being like, oh my gosh, I've been doing all of this spiritual work, but still nothing's happening. I'm still caught in this drama. So these are some of the signs and symptoms, and those actually hold people back from continuing the journey, continuing their waking up journey, because they think there's something wrong. But the truth is that those are just signs and symptoms of awakening, and they're perfectly normal if you understand that they're normal. The problem is that most people don't have the tools and resources then to use in the waking up and the showing up part.
And that leads to my very next question, because that's really where you come into play. When your mission and your passion is to help that awakening on a collective level, but you are working with people in general one-on-one. Is that correct?
Actually, both. I work one-on-one with clients, but I also do group programs as well.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
so as a result, one of the things that you really provide in this awakening process are tools and resources. What would be, do you think, some of the most important resources and tools that our audience might want to know about in their own awakening?
Sure. Well, before I answer that question, I'm first going to explain, because I think that there's multiple tools and resources, what I call practices. So I'm very big on practices, and I believe that there's 5 areas of practice that are critical in this process of waking up, growing up, and showing up. And these 5 areas are thinking practices, seeing practices, communicating practices, connecting practices, and then taking action, action taking practices. Um, one of, and then I'll give you one practice, because there's a bazillion
I'm
probably
sure.
out there. So to narrow it down into just a few, it really depends on what I'm working with someone. But one practice that is critical is the practice of inquiry, asking questions, and not just asking any question, asking the right questions. Questions are help us to gain insight and help us to gain perspective. And I believe that all problems are a perspectives issue. So we need good inquiry practices in order to help us see from multiple perspectives, to gain a larger breadth and depth of insight into what's really happening, so that we gain insight into the whole truth, not just a partial truth.
Yeah, so we have discussed this a little bit, and I love your approach to questioning and inquiry. And you had said something about Einstein would, if he had an hour to solve a problem, right? He would spend approximately 55 minutes coming up with the right question. And once he discovered the right question, he would be able to solve the problem in the next 5 minutes. Could you elaborate on that idea?
Yeah, and I think it's we did talk about this one a little bit. It's this idea of asking the right question. If we ask ourselves the wrong question, we're going to come up with the wrong answer, because here's what happens. When a problem is presented in our world, what happens is we identify a problem, and this usually happens unconsciously. We identify a problem, and then our mind immediately wants to find the answer to that problem. But if the problem has been framed in a way that's only looking from one perspective, or a very limited perspective, then your mind is going to use, how do I say, sort of use that as the framework for its answers. And the answers are going to also come from that limited perspective. So there's a whole way of learning how to ask questions in a way that broadens our perspective, right? So what Einstein was saying in this thing of 55 minutes to ask a question, I have this whole process of working with clients where what we do is we write down as many questions as we can, because not all of our questions are going to be good questions. And you and I, Virginia, were talking about this before in the green room. Peter Drucker said, this is a paraphrase of something that he said, which is the worst thing that you can do is get the right answer to the wrong question. So
I
what
love
you want to do is actually have a practice of asking questions. Maybe spend 10 minutes writing down as many questions as you can in reference to the problem or issue or challenge that you're working with. Out of those 10 questions, maybe only one question is actually a good question. How do you know if a question is a good question? Because usually it has a charge in it for you. It'll literally feel like a good question, where the other ones are like, that's not even a good question. But it does take practice. You can't expect to get this in one try, which is why I say it's an inquiry practice. You do this on a regular basis. And I'll add to that, and I'll shut up in just a minute here, is I'll add to that. I'll add to that that finding the goal in this in the beginning is not to get the answer. Everybody wants to go to the answer because answers are highly valued. Questions have no value. I asked my daughter in school, I asked her, how many questions do you think you ask a day? And she said, 100. Like, she just came up with that number, right? I'm like, oh, really? So what questions do you ask the most, or what classes do you ask the most questions? And she said, oh, history and science, because I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. So great, she's asking a lot of questions. And I said, well, what class don't you ask a lot of questions in? She said, math. I think it was math. I can't remember. Math or English, whatever one it was. I said, well, why don't you? And the interesting thing was she didn't say it was because I already know everything. She said because the teacher makes you feel stupid for asking questions. And the teacher doesn't care about my questions. This is what's happening in our educational system, and why as adults we have to reteach ourselves an inquiry practice. When we're only 3 years old or 4 years old, we're asking hundreds, not just 100, hundreds of questions a day. So I'll open it back to
go on with this because it's really important. I mean, in your own work, and then I want to bring up some of the people's comments. We've got some great comments coming up here, but while I've still got this on my brain, this question is what I think you are so strong in, Lisa, that really I admire about you, is that you are willing to ask the hard questions. You are not one that just stays with the flow of things and accepts it, but you will step out and actually question what I call the status quo on something. Well, is that really why it's the way it is? Or I'd like you to elaborate on that as well, because to me, just what your daughter is talking about, a lot of people are intimidated by, getting off that groove that so many people are in, because, oh, that's how everyone does it. How did you get to the point of questioning the status quo, and how has it really improved the quality of your own work and your own experience?
I love that question because it's true. Questioning the status quo is one of the number one, we value answers in our society and the Western world more than we value answers. But the other reason why most people don't ask many questions as an adult is because they fear challenging the status quo. But the truth is, until you question conventional knowledge and wisdom, we're not going to make real changes in our own life or in the world, because we're stuck in one limited perspective. Status quo is a often limited perspective. How I came to challenge that has always been through my own struggles. And one example that might interest the viewers here would be just in my business and questioning this whole thing of internet marketing and email campaigns and webinars and teleseminars, and after having tried doing those, realizing they're not working for me. It just doesn't work. I don't like it, number one. Number two, I am not feeling connected with anybody, which takes us back to this whole point of what you started our show with today. So my question was, well, what if I didn't have to have any email list in order to launch my next program? What if I used only Hangouts to do my entire launch? And what if I could do that and be successful? And if I hadn't asked that question, I wouldn't have come up with a whole strategy for doing that, to even test if it would work. And it did work. I mean, I found out you can have a successful launch and fill a program without having any email list, which everybody tells you, cherish your email list. I'm not saying don't cherish your email list. I'm saying I was just curious, could I do this all in an entirely different way? Because all of the experts and gurus are telling you, you need to be capturing leads. And I said, well, what if you don't have to? That was challenging the status quo. And it worked.
A brilliant example. Yeah. Because if you think about paradigm shifts in general, paradigm shifts happen because someone is questioning the status quo. The most basic one was obviously that the status quo centuries ago was that the earth was flat, right? Until that was questioned and a new paradigm came along. And when you think of some of the advances in medicine, it's because the status quo has been questioned and challenged, and people have taken risks to discover new and better ways.
And
So
you know what?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I'm cutting in on you because I get all excited about this. And you know what always happens is nobody believes you in the beginning. Like, Virginia, you're on the cutting edge of this too, because you're doing the same thing with Google Hang. We're doing the same. You and I are doing the same thing, and I know some of the people in the audience here are as well. And at first, when you're on the forefront of a movement, not everybody, but there aren't going to be that many people hopping on board with you on that movement. So you have to have enough confidence and courage to continue on and know from the evidence that's around you, okay, this is enough evidence. I don't have the world behind me yet, but there just has to be some courage and confidence behind challenging the status quo too. I just wanted to bring that piece in.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think that brings us sort of around full circle. I do want to touch on intention, so we are going to run a few minutes longer today, everyone. I knew we were going to get a little deep on this, so hang with us, and I do want to acknowledge you. But again, while it's still on my brain, this brings us around to the collective process, because when you start a paradigm shift by being willing to question, being curious about, well, what if we did it this way, challenging the status quo, you end up gently, and I think it is gently, bringing out a paradigm shift that then becomes more collectively embraced. More people come into what I would call this vortex swirling in a new direction, until lo and behold, I don't like the term little people, but we people who are not the gurus of the world, is maybe a better way of putting it, suddenly have a voice and an opportunity to be heard. And that's an important part of connecting, is giving people an opportunity to be heard and letting that move into the collective consciousness. So from here, Lisa, I'm going to give you one more stab here at this idea of how intention plays into this whole process and this whole shift.
Yeah. So it's an interesting question, because when you talk about intention, I was just having this discussion a few days ago with another colleague in our industry, and we were making the distinction between intention and expectation. In this idea of connecting with people, and having the connections, especially if we're talking in terms of business. I'm going to put it into this realm of business because this technology is so amazing to be seen and be heard, as you said, be heard, but also the seen part because it's video, but without any expectation that anything has to happen from it, has always been the place I come from. So my intention is that I create an authentic connection without any expectation that, oh, Virginia's going to become a JV partner for me, or strategic partner, or so-and-so is going to be my next client. I'm going to try to get on a private hangout with this person to see if they want a strategy session. Like,
I get it, totally.
So the intention can be to have that authentic connection so that it serves the greater good. I mean, and I know that all this starts to sound like loose and not enough. It can sound loose and not have much strategy around it. But I don't think that they have to be separated. I think intention just comes from a place within us of what are we here to do, to be in service of, and releasing any expectations of what's going to manifest from that intention is really where I like to come from. I don't know if that really answered your question, though. Did it?
Oh yeah, no, it does, and I love that you bring in the idea of intention. Is in some instances not to have an intention or not to have an agenda with your intention. If your agenda or your intention is as pure as I want to connect with this person, I'd like to get to know more about this person, and what their passions are. I mean that's really was the whole impetus for starting my program. There's just so many wonderful, brilliant people out there that aren't being heard yet, that aren't being seen yet, that need I think, a platform in which to get their ideas out there. That's the intention of my show. I think that this intention will create its own ripple effect as more and more people connect with one another, get to know one another, support one another, and you end up with these wonderful. Then the JV relations, if you want to call it that, they come naturally. They're
Totally.
a natural outgrowth of that connecting power.
That's the ripple effect of connecting. Connecting will just, it can't not bring you good things when you have the authentic connection.
No,
and always in unexpected ways too, right, Virginia?
Well, you never do know. That's the beauty of not expecting, but just allowing and being open to. That part of it is really what I love about it. That's what makes this. Okay, so the final little bit of topic here, and I'm still watching all of you. Keep putting your comments and questions down for Lisa, and of course we're going to have a great after show coming up. You guys are terrific. I love this. But the final part of this is what you're really getting into, and I think I am as well, and that is harnessing the digital potential for what you call social and human potential. I love this. So expand on that for a minute.
Yeah, so for me, the digital potential in Google Hangouts is the perfect platform to do what we're talking about, to connect, right? To connect and communicate. This platform is ideal for connecting and communicating. And when I first started using this platform, I realized, oh my gosh, that I now have something that I feel very at home in, because I got used to the technology, which is easy once you spend a little bit of time with it. I now have a way to connect with a global audience, anyone, anywhere, anytime in the world. And so if I have work to do in the world that's going to make an impact, now I can do it I can't say infinitely, exponentially faster than I could have any other way. It's really about harnessing how we're using the digital potential to do our work in the world, and I believe that this platform is the platform to do that. If you're someone who has a message to share, who wants to make an impact in the world, you have a movement, that you're part of a movement, it is an amazing platform to use to be in service to human and social and planetary potential.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And speaking of which, I want to say hi to Aline Boundy, who is hanging out with us from the UK. So what you're talking about, the global connections that are here. Neil Brown, who is here from Santa Cruz, and he is in the process of authoring an upcoming book on parent and teen control battles. Now, what a great platform this is for being able to have a discussion around this and educate people around this. So hi there, Neil. Let me put Jeffrey's up here. Jeffrey Dodd, he's saying, awakening to our collective social personal potential is growing up and showing up and being in action. He says, not just words. Thank you, Lisa Engles, for waking up here. Let's see. Let's go to another one here. Oh, Jeffrey is also saying, from which whole perspective do I have to come up with the right question? There's a good question right there, isn't it, Lisa?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in answer to that question, there's a series of questions that help you that facilitate a holistic perspective, which we don't have time to go in.
No, we don't. But we love the questions. And here's from Adelaide. Welcome, Adelaide. The most important thing to learn as a facilitator for growth and development is to ask the right questions. So she's totally in agreement with you, and I think everyone else is. Molly is saying, I was always terrible at math until I was a senior in high school, and can say it was because of the teacher why I finally caught on to algebra 2, geometry, etc., and certainly why I still maintain it is only stupid when you don't ask questions. And yes, can the teacher set the tone for your attitude about a certain topic? I would say, Lisa, your experience and many others is yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Great
oh,
comment.
Josie, let's pull Josie's up here before we get people into the after show. I have found that in a group setting, a question comes to mind. I used to sit with it thinking it was probably stupid until I found that someone else asked the same question, which made me realize I wasn't stupid.
Yeah, I've definitely had that same experience too, Josie. I'm like, oh, I had that same question. But that's why, as a facilitator, you always know when someone asks a question that there's probably more than one other person that has that same question. So thank the people that ask the questions.
Absolutely. And then finally, Molly's got one more comment here. It looks, Google Hangouts in there is an excellent tool to reach a global audience and connect and broadcast your message to the entire world, which we're just demonstrating here. Love the fact that you use the word harness. I don't think you can read that part. And my tagline, Molly's tagline, is harness the power of the internet.
Oh, nice. That's
and
great.
You know what I love about this is this idea of harnessing is, we're back to what we put up is that we don't want to go back to 1993, but we do want to harness this technology in a way that connects us even deeper. And that is I think, the big intention here, and in many ways the intention of this show.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're doing it right here, Virginia. And I mean, as evidenced by how we're connecting with the audience right now, and will in replay, and it's amazing. And I'm doing it the same as you are, so it's really cool. And I will say, I do believe that Hangouts are leading the space for that. I don't think that it happens this way in Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or any other type of social media. It just is that this is so unique. It's almost beyond. It's very evolutionary. It's an evolutionary piece of digital technology that Google has created. So hopefully it catches on even more.
I think there's no way that it won't, and I think it's one of the reasons I ended up going from general business coaching, which I've done for some 25 years in the mind connection of all that, into helping with Hangouts on air, and really not just learning the how-to of Hangouts, but learning the why of Hangouts and the potential, like you're harnessing potential, the potential of Hangouts to really get yourself noticed, to brand yourself, to be out there in a bigger way, because you have every right. Anybody here has a gift that the world needs to know about. And my also the passion is that there's still so many people don't even know that Hangouts exist. Believe it or not, if you get off of the Google space, it's amazing to me how many people don't know it, or they've heard of it, but they're not really sure what to do with it, or they're intimidated by it, which means they're letting the technology get in the way. And my whole intention is to let the technology play in the background and not get in the way, so that you can shine and bring your gifts to the world. And as we all do this, I think there's just so much more that we can collectively do. And I think paradigm shifts are going to happen faster as a result.
I do too. I'm right on board with you there.
So I have posted, everyone I have posted, so you can join us in the after show. I would love to have you here for a few more minutes to bring some of your questions directly to Lisa. I've loved this conversation with you, Lisa. I so appreciate your taking the time and sharing your perspective on things that we're going to take a few more minutes. If you can, come in and say hi. If nothing else, there's some of you I haven't met yet, and I love it when I meet you personally in this connecting space. So just click on the link that I provided for you and come on in and join us. And before I sign off on the live broadcast, Lisa, let's just give you a chance to share your last, it won't be your last, but for today on there, your last overview on this whole collective process and really where you're going with it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to make it into, I want to summarize and encapsulate everything that we've been saying, which is we are starving for connection. I think that's my opinion, is that we are over inundated with, or we're over inundated, that was sort of like rhetorical to say both of those, but we have a lot coming at us all the time, and I don't think that most of us are feeling very connected. We're living in a world where if we could only have a little bit more connection, where each of us is seen and heard on a regular basis, that is what we need in order to begin. Well, we're doing it, right? But that is part of the solution to what's happening here on this planet. We're in dire straits, but it's my belief that we're on this precipice of a new era, and this is part of the solution, is the connection. And it's wonderful that we have this digital technology that can support us in that connection space. So that's where I'm going to leave, give you that as a final thought.
That's a beautiful place to leave it, and that is in connecting. And again, I want to thank all of you who are here live for connecting with us today, and all of you who will be watching at Replay City, thank you for connecting with us. Feel free to put more questions and comments in the comment area, and again, as I sign off, please come on in and say hi to Lisa and myself. We'd love to connect with you. And so with that said, thank you, Lisa, once again for being here. You can learn more about Lisa's programs by going to interstatecoaching.com. Is that correct, Lisa?
Yep, that's right.
Interstatecoaching.com to get connected with Lisa and her programs. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week on the Inspirational Businesswoman Show. Bye-bye now.